But yeah, that moves us into my academy section. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through 16 to 1, the academy. So this is a bit of a tough one. So the way I've done it, there's no real perfect way to do this, but the way I've done it, I didn't want it to take me 6 days because I do have a life of some sorts, although in lockdown. So for the last 5 seasons, I've grabbed a team list from one round. So 2015 to 2017 Toyota Cup, and then 2018 to 2019, I had the Jersey Flag for the New South Wales competition. And I think it's like the Hastings and Deering Cup or something in Queensland Cup. But they're both like under 20, under 21. Same sort of ballpark. 2020 got cancelled, and this year I didn't include because, And so what I've done is I just tallied up how many times a player from, so for example, I'll give you an example. Terrell Fuimaono was in the Parramatta Toyota Cup team in 2015. He's played more than 5 NRL games, so I just gave Parramatta a score of 1. And I pretty much just tallied up, and then whenever a team was tied on the number, I split it by quality. So there are some teams who've only produced 9 or 10, and they're really high quality. There's others who've produced 21, and they're sort of all myths, but that's the general gist. There's definitely going to be some who slip through the cracks. It's not a foolproof method. But yeah, I was just interested to see because I was thinking about the Tigers and what's gone wrong. And I feel like every other team, they, bring in some youngster off the bench or something one week and they're really exciting. They sort of tear up the game for 5 minutes and get fans really hyped up. Sort of like the Dragons with Talatau Almone the other week, Amone. Where the Tigers, I feel like, haven't had that in a while. So I was just wondering, are we producing enough talent? So that led me down this rabbit hole. And starting in at 16th, speaking of rabbit holes, it's the Rabbitohs. They've only produced 9 NRL players. And another issue, sorry, I didn't mention that when I finished my introduction. It's sort of hard to know whether this means the team are the best scouts because they've picked up these juniors and put them into their junior programs, or if this team's actually producing the talent. You can't really split the two. Both are good skills, so we're just going to credit the teams where the credit's due. So the Rabbitohs only 9 players. Now, this sort of makes sense. It's a really small section of Sydney that they're given, sort of surrounded by NRL teams, them and the Roosters. They haven't produced many big players. Angus Crichton was one of their biggest. Caleb Graham, Adam Dewey, Keon Koloamatangi more recently. But yeah, they're down the bottom, only producing 9 players. Manly were next in at 9. However, they've produced a lot of quality. So they have not necessarily seen the best of all their quality either. They've seen a lot let go. Turbo's obviously the main one. Manasi Fainu, I know he's had his whole off-field saga, but if he does get back on the field, I think he can be a very good player. I don't really want to talk about people with ongoing court issues because I don't want to talk about a guilty person, but they've also got Jesse Ramian, Nico Hines, Brad Parker, Olakuatu. So there's a lot of skill there, just not much volume, which makes sense. Once again, Manly, small area. Number 14, I have the Bulldogs. They had produced 10 players and not many players of note, with the greatest respect. They had 10 players with more than 5 games. Don't think any of them have played more than 30 games. So that's an interesting one to note, not producing many there out of the Canterbury area. The Titans were in at 13th. Now, the Titans had a lot of players that sort of jumped around. They might have started the Titans and the team might have come in and got them. Brian Kelly was one that I was surprised at. Didn't know he actually stemmed from the Titans because if you remember, he debuted through the Manly system. Max King of the Storm fame, AJ Brimson, Mo Fodawaker, Philip Sammy. So actually quite a bit of homegrown talent on the Gold Coast. Then number 12, I've got the Warriors. The Warriors, if we did this from 2010 to 2021, the Warriors legit might be first, but their production sort of slowed down the last couple of years. They've produced 12 players. Murata Niokore of Parramatta fame is 1. Just Tavanga, Isaiah Papali'i, Harris Tavita, Eliasa Katoa. So a lot of them coming through the Warriors system. Number 11, I have the Raiders, and the Raiders are a 12-player team as well. Not much talent coming out of the Raiders system. I believe Pangai played for them at some point. Chotrich is from there. Then they've obviously got Raiders young guns like Horsburgh, Smith Shields, Tomoko, and Lachlan Croker of Manly fame. That puts the Storm in at 10. I was surprised by this. not sure if I was expecting them to be higher or lower, to be honest. I was interested to see where they'll be because they're great scouts, but a lot of their players usually are a bit older that they scout who have sort of flopped at a system somewhere and then they pick them up from reserve grade. So not surprised they're not too high. They had 12 players. Nickel Klukstar was one who's been in their system. Jake Turpin, Jesse Arthurs, Josh Kerr, Tanua Brown, which was interesting, Harry Grant, Braden Trindle, which was interesting, Scotty Drinkwater. Then this isn't a pun, but it's not meant to be a joke. I'm a Tigers fan, so don't get mad. But the Tigers are in at ninth. The Titans have produced 13 players. A lot have come through Kebra Park. But yeah, not much talent. Pappenhausen, obviously. And then apart from that, there's not many guns. Tavita Totola, Taniela Paseka, and then the rest are like Tigers players like Jacob Little, Tom McHaley, and all that stuff. Ray Stone from Para, that was interesting. But yeah, not much quality there at all, which is obviously something that the Tigers need to fix up because they used to be one of the great junior producers, and that's probably why Sheensy's being brought back. Parramatta in at 8th. They have 14 players. They've got some good players in their midst. Reed Marnie, Dill Brown, Bevan French, Fui Mayono, Remus Smith. So they've got some good ones in there. Dragons in at 7th. The Dragons have produced 15 players. Not much quality. Zach Lomax, Matt Duffy. That's about it, really. Luciano Leilua. So yeah, a lot of players, not too much quality from the Dragons, but I think their next crop of junior is going to be really exciting. Cowboys are in at 6th. They've produced 15 players. They had a freaking gun team in the Toyota Cup. Go back 2014 to 2016, look at their Toyota Cup teams. I don't really know what went wrong. I know they had a really good NRL team at the time, so the players might have left thinking they had opportunities elsewhere, but they had Billy Kickout, Brandon Smith, Braden Hamlin, Ueli, Cohen Hess, Kalen Ponga. I know Jerome Hughes was in there somewhere. He didn't count towards this, but I know he played for them at some point. They obviously had Jake Clifford, Corey Horsburgh, Dejan Arce more recently. But yeah, that was a really interesting one. I know it's a big area, but I didn't think there would be too much talent for some reason. The Knights in at 5th. They had 16 players, but not the most talent. I know I keep saying that, but when we get to the big teams, you'll understand what I mean. They had the Saifidi twins, Tom Starling, and they are probably the main ones to note. All right, heading into the top 4 now of producers of talent in the NRL. Sharks are 4th, which I was very surprised at. I have to say, in the last, especially under Shane Flanagan, and recently, I guess, they do, 2 or 3 young guns get blooded a year, and they're usually pretty good. But I didn't know that they would have this sort of volume. Addo Carr, Jermaine Asako, Connor Tracy, the Brayley brothers, Mortalo, Trindle, Will Kennedy, Jesse Ramian, Kyle Flanagan. So yeah, they've produced a lot of good players actually, and they've produced 18. So whoever's in charge of the junior system at Cronulla, absolutely killing it. I think people should go have a look at what's happening there because I don't think. Look, I'm from Melbourne, never lived in Sydney, but to me, Cronulla is not like the biggest area when you compare it to like Brisbane or Penrith, and I think it's a pretty affluent area, so I didn't think there would be that many like families, but I could be completely wrong. I'm just going of what I sort of understand about the geography of Sydney. Panthers in at 3rd. Obviously, a lot of their current team has come through their own system, so I knew they were going to be at the top. They have 20 players. Brent Naden, Moses Leota, Dylan Edwards, Nathan Cleary, Jerome Luai, Corey Waddell, Caleb Aikens, Brian Tyler. It's pretty much just their whole team right now, plus a few others who have not been good enough to make the team and seeked elsewhere for game time. Dane Laurie. So yeah, Penrith are in at 3rd. The Broncos are in at 2nd. Not really surprising there towards the top. Obviously got probably the biggest NRL market in terms of participation per team, if we're going to say that. So they have an access to a lot of good players. Still can't keep Sam Walker, but anyway. Ash Taylor, Joe Offa-Hengawi, Jaden Sewer, Jai Arrow, Tavita Pangai, Tony Staggs, Payne Haas, Jordan Ricky, Tanner Boyd. So yeah, 20 players there. Some good players, not the most quality, but a lot of them still got time to sprout, as this whole list does. And then this one shocked me the most. The Roosters are number 1, and I thought the Roosters would be really low on this list. Obviously, a really small section of Sydney, not many families there, so and obviously Eastern Suburbs Rugby Union heavy. They've produced 21 players. So I think a lot of this can come down to scouting, but that is still a very good skill to have as a club. So I gained a lot of respect for the Roosters doing this research. Their best players were Latrell Mitchell, Joey Manu, Connor Watson, Momorowski, Vic Radley, Sam Verrills, Satili Tupanua, Jackson Hastings. They've produced a lot of players, and a lot of them have gone on to play for them, which is always good to see, and they've produced a lot of good players. So, Roosters number one. So that's just a little insight into the youth production of players in the NRL, which teams are batting above their average, which teams are sort of stealing other teams' players pretty much. But it's still a skill to scout players from other systems and all that, but I just thought it'd be interesting to check that out. So, well done to the Roosters, Broncos, Panthers, I guess, the main top three there.
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? No! Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.